Okay. So now we'll go to the chart of Yoko Ono. And maybe I should give the birth data for that. And maybe you tell them the birth data first of all. So the birth data is February 18th, 1933 at 8:30 p.m. in Tokyo.
で、まず小野陽子のホロスコープについて検討してみましょう。で、出生データはですね、1933年の2月18日、夜8時30分、東京生まれです。これで皆さんも、自分でね、ご自分でホロスコープを作成してみてください。OK?
Okay, so in Yoko Ono's chart, when we look at the seventh house and we try to analyze that seventh house, the first thing we do is we look to see if there's any planets in the seventh house. But there's no planets in the seventh house. So we immediately forget about that and we move to the ruler of the seventh house. The ruler of the seventh house is placed in the 12th, at the Stana. And it's with Ketu, it's aspected by the sun, and it's also with Jupiter.
で、まず最初にですね、7室を見ます。で、7室を見るとですね、何も惑星がないので、次は7室の支配星を見ます。で、7室の支配星は、木星ですが、木星は12室にありますよね。で、12室で、木星はケイト、火星と一緒で太陽のアスペクトを受けています。OK?
Actually, I meant that it was Mars.
Yes.
But anyway, so the ruler of the seventh is in the 12th with two malefics. That's very bad, and it's aspected by a third malefic, the sun. And the sun is particularly bad here because the sun rules the 12th house. And when the ruler of the 12th house is aspecting a planet in the 12th house, then it reinforces the placement of that planet in the 12th house. So the sun reinforces the 12th house placement of Jupiter and makes it more negative.
OK。この木星ですが、2つの強星とコンジャンクトしてますよね。火星とケイトゥですが、で、さらに太陽のアスペクトを受けてます。すなわち3つの強星と絡んでいます。で、これ2つの強星と絡んでいるだけでもかなり悪いんですが、そのダメ押しとして3つ目の強星が絡んでいます。で、この太陽について言うならば、この太陽は12室を支配してますので、これはさらに悪いです。なぜかというと、木星は12室にあり、なおかつ12室を支配する太陽のアスペクトを受けているということで、この木星と12室の絡みっていうのが非常に強調されるわけですよね。ですから、この、12室にとってはね、太陽がね、12室にアスペクトするのはいいんですが、木星にとっては、この太陽、12室の支配者のアスペクトというのは、12室にあるというその悪い側面をさらに悪くします。強めます。OK?
So this is a classical example of an extremely afflicted planet. The planet which rules the seventh house, placed into Stana, influenced by three malefics. And the idea here is just that if you have one bad placement, like Jupiter in the 12th house, that's no big problem. It's just mild. If you have two bad influences, Jupiter in the 12th and just one malefic, okay, that's mildly, it's a little more difficult. Conjunct two malefics, it's much more difficult. Conjunct, aspected by three malefics, it's extremely difficult. And so for that reason, this is an example of something where, we can confidently say immediately that this woman would have problems with marriage.
で、これは非常に古典的な例題と言えます。なぜかというとですね、説明しますとですね、12室に7室の支配性があるっていうのは、ただそれだけでならば大した問題はありません。ところが12室に7室の支配性があって、で例えば1つの強制と絡んでいる場合は、ちょっと問題があるかなという程度なんですが、2つの強制が絡むとですね、これはちょっと問題、いよいよ問題になってきます。ところが3つ以上の強制に絡むとですね、例えば今回の場合もそうなんですが、これはかなり問題であると言えるわけですね。ですから小野陽子のホロスコープからですね、この7室のテーマについてはかなり問題があるということが読み取れるわけです。OK?
Do they know the game of baseball?
Sorry?
Do they know the game of baseball?
They know, yes.
Okay, so if I say 3 strikes, you're out, they'll understand that?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, tell them basically, 1 strike is all right, even 2 strikes is all right, but 3 strikes and you're out in baseball. It's the same with this. And then also my grandmother used to say, it takes 3 logs to make a fire. You can't make a fire with 1 log. It's hard to make a fire with 2 logs even. But with 3 logs, you can make a fire. And it's like that in astrology. In order to say something confidently, you want to have at least 2, and better to have 3 things saying the same thing. In this case, we have 4.
OK で、野球に例えるならばですね、3ストライクでアウトになりますよね。で、全くインド戦説も同じで、3つの強制、とにかくなんか3つの少なくとも何かを言おうとする場合は2つ以上の組み合わせ、同じような材料が必要だと。で、野球の場合3つでアウトになりますが、インド先生術でもこのホロスコープでも3つ例えば強制に絡んでいると、これはもう悪いと言っていいでしょう。で、この場合、小野陽子の場合はね、3ストライクじゃなくて、4ストライク、4つそれが揃っているんで、これは間違いなくそう言えるわけです。
Okay, so this bad placement is placed in the house of losses. So she lost her husband. This shows the loss of the husband. And obviously, John Lennon died, and she also had a previous marriage where she got a divorce from her first husband. So she's had 2 marriages where she's had losses in both of those marriages.
で、この場合12数っていうのは失うという意味がありますので、夫を失うっていうふうになるわけですね。で、小野陽子の場合、ジョン・レノンが実際に失っています。で、彼女は2回結婚してるんですが、最初の夫もやはり離婚という形で失っています。Okay.
On the other hand, she has Gajrakasara Yoga in the horoscope, when the moon and Jupiter are in angles to each other. And as a result, she married a famous husband. Now, it doesn't have to create fame every time. It just happened to do this in Yoko Ono's case. Sometimes it just indicates a husband who would be in the public eye. I'm linking this to the husband because Jupiter, the ruler of the 7th house, is involved in the Gajrakasara Yoga. So it could indicate a husband who's a salesperson, or a husband who's in public relations, or a husband who's in advertising, or a husband who is somehow connected with public events. But in this case, he's actually literally a famous husband. It's all the same thing, just a matter of degree.
で、ガジャケサリヨガができています。これは木星とね、月がね、お互いに40のケンドラにある場合に形成されるヨガですが、小野陽子の場合はですね、7室を支配する木星がこのガジャケサリヨガを形成していますんで、実際その7室を支配するね、惑星はね、夫を表すわけですが、その夫がですね、実際ガジャケサリヨガって有名になるとか、あるいは例えば PR 部門にあるとか、セールス部門でね、非常に抜きに出ているとか、あるいはパブリック大きな公共事業にね、その携わって有名になるとか、いろんな意味合いがあるわけですが、実際小野陽子のね、夫というのはジョン・レノンというふうに、その文字通り有名な人であったわけです。OK。
Some teachers look at this, and some astrologers, some students look at this, and they say, no, that's not Gajrakasara Yoga, because it's afflicted, because it's not in the angles from the ascendant. It has the moon debilitated. Jupiter is with all these malefics in the 12th house. That can't be Gajrakasara Yoga. And the answer to that is that this is a really good example of a Gajrakasara Yoga which has been spoiled by malefics. And it still gives reputation and fame. The problem is that it gives some reputation that is not so good. Because John Lennon and Yoko Ono were both criticized a lot in the media. There's a lot of criticism on them as well. And that's why we have malefics here. They were very different. They were unusual. They were revolutionaries. And as a result, they didn't get all good public relations. Their reputations wasn't all good completely.
そうですね、先生術家の間ではですね、